I'm pretty optimistic that in the next year, between some of these ETFs getting approved, some regulatory clarity emerging, the Bitcoin halving that's happening, my hope is that next year we'll see a pretty good outcome for crypto. And
내년까지 몇몇 비트코인 현물 ETF가 승인되고 규제가 명확해지면 크립토 시장에 좋은 결과가 나올 것이라고 낙관하고 있는 영상 속 인물은 현재 미국 1위 거래소이자 대형 기관들의 비트코인 현물 ETF 수탁 기관인 코인베이스의 CEO 브라이언 암스트롱입니다. 최근 세계 1위 거래소인 바이낸스 CEO 창펑자오 사임 이후 세계 최대의 거래소로 떠오르고 있는 코인베이스가 지금은 그 어떤 시기보다 크립토 시장에서 중요한 위치에 서 있는 그런 상황인데요. 이런 상황에서 코인베이스 CEO인 브라이언 암스트롱이 생각하는 향후 크립토 시장의 방향성과 비전에 대한 디테일한 그의 인사이트에 대해서 함께 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Well, we've been very impressed with Prime Minister Sunak's leadership here, just attracting foreign investment into the country, and we were honored to be invited as the only cryptocurrency company that was invited. So the UK is one of the places in the world where we're starting to see really clear crypto regulation and policy emerge, and that's really causing us to want to invest more in the country.
Well, you mentioned that you're the only crypto platform that was invited. I guess, that's an endorsement for Coinbase, but not necessarily a great endorsement for the industry as a whole, is it?
Well, there certainly have been a few bad actors in crypto, and I think we've had a moment recently with the enforcement action against Binance that's allowing us to kind of turn the page on that and hopefully close that chapter of crypto's history. There are many, many companies in crypto that are helping build the crypto economy and update our financial system globally, but many of them are still small startups, and I think getting that regulatory clarity is going to help build more investment in the crypto space.
So let's just talk about those two very high-profile incidents that have happened this year. It's not been a great year to be a CEO of a crypto platform. Big falls for grace for SBF and for CZ, as we found out. Can the industry actually move on from this? And have these incidents not flagged up that the use cases for crypto can actually be used for nefarious actions?
Yeah, well, I think, as I mentioned, it's a good moment for us to kind of turn the page as an industry and recognize that building a company offshore, skirting regulation, it's just not going to work. We've seen that now as two of these high-profile companies have really gone bust or, ended up with regulatory enforcement actions, as they should. And many of the companies that were trying to do it the right way and build from the early days in a responsible and legal and trusted manner, now they have the moment to really grow as they should. Sometimes it's easy to get big fast by skirting the rules, but you always come crashing back down to reality. And I think Coinbase is one of those companies where we've tried to take, an approach even from 10, 11 years ago, doing things in a trusted and regulated way. You asked about some of the illicit activity and use cases. So it's true that there have been some small amount of illicit activity in crypto, but it's actually about less than 1% from what we've seen. If you look at the illicit uses of cash, for instance, oftentimes it's 3 or 4%. It's actually much higher than what's happening in crypto. So we've now seen millions of people around the globe and here in the UK especially that are using crypto, and these are just ordinary people. They're interested in crypto because they see it as a technology to update the financial system. They see it as a new form of money that is resistant to inflation. They see it as a new way with Web3 to own their own data on the internet, not have it be owned by a big tech company. And I think that's what got me excited about it as a technology to update the financial system.
Let me just come back to what you were saying though about lawsuits, and I know that the SEC still have an ongoing lawsuit with Coinbase. It's a civil lawsuit, so it's separate. It's a different kind of lawsuit to what we saw obviously with the others. But are you convinced that you're going to be able to make it to the other side with a clean slate once this lawsuit comes to an end?
Yeah, so we feel very good about our case with the SEC and our chances there. And again, as you pointed out, it's a very different situation. This is a civil matter. It's really just trying to understand the technicalities of which assets are commodities, which are securities. In the U.S., we have the unfortunate thing of there's two federal regulators for the commodities and securities. Here in the U.K., there's just one with the FCA. And so it's a bit of a moot point, this technical matter in the U.K., which is partly what makes it attractive for us. But I think regardless of the outcome, I think our chances are very good on that case, but regardless of the outcome, it's going to help us with our goal of getting regulatory clarity. It would have been better if the regulator had just published clear guidance, But in the absence of that, we can go get case law created in the courts, or maybe Congress will have to pass new legislation.
Can I just ask you the outlook for the crypto industry as a whole? I mean, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, because we've had these very, high-profile cases, demises of, very high-profile CEOs. What is your outlook for crypto markets going forward?
Well, crypto has gone through probably 4 or 5 different cycles. It has, kind of like the dot-com boom and bust, but we've had maybe 4 or 5 of these over the last 11 years. Now, in 2022, things came down quite a lot in crypto, and we saw a major correction. And then this year, in 2023, it started off similarly, but we've now had crypto prices really increase quite a lot this year. I believe crypto prices are up by over 100% or something in that order. So I'm pretty optimistic that in the next year, between some of these ETFs getting approved, some regulatory clarity emerging, the Bitcoin halving that's happening, my hope is that next year we'll see a pretty good outcome for crypto. And the reason I'm excited about it is not just because of people trading it, although I think that's important, but I want to see this as a technology that can make economic freedom more prevalent around the world and update the financial system, which is still too slow and expensive.
Well, I remember back in 2021 when we were discussing it around the craze, the full hype of crypto, there was a lot of discussion about institutional investors putting their money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of died down, and there's been a lot less institutional interest. And I would say the hurdle for institutions to get involved is a lot higher than it was, given some of these high-profile cases that we just discussed. What is your outlook for institutional money coming in? Because so far it seems to be the domain of retail.
Well, actually, I would disagree with that. I think that we've seen a lot of interest from institutions, especially even in the last year. Actually, most major financial institutions that we engage with are doing something in crypto now. We've seen BlackRock and Visa and JP Morgan and various firms have some sort of effort, exploring blockchain technology or integrating it directly. Through our institutional business at Coinbase, we've seen actually a flight to quality, if you will. So we've seen an increased number of institutions signing up over the last couple of quarters. And as I've discussed on our earnings calls in the past, and that gives me a lot of confidence that while they're onboarding today and starting to take some action, that there'll be a move of capital in once the markets kind of fully take off.
How significant do you think the launch of a Bitcoin or a crypto ETF would be for the industry?
It's monumental. I mean, it'll bring in new sources of capital into crypto that aren't able to participate directly today. And I think it would be a legitimizing outcome for the industry.
Let me take you on a slightly different track. Singapore have announced recently that they're going to be launching their own version of a central bank digital currency. What is the industry view of CBDCs?
Well, on the one hand, I'm a big fan of CBDCs in the sense of, we want blockchain as a technology to be used and updated, to update the financial system globally. And so I think central banks, should be a player in that. But I think the ones that we've seen be most successful so far it's not when the central bank actually issues their own currency, it's when they set a clear policy framework and the private market actually creates these. So USD coin, for instance, is one that we've been involved in that has been very successful. And, I'd like to see a GBP coin emerge. My guess is that with a clear policy in place, we'll see the private market create that, or several competitive versions of it with strong compliance and controls around it. But if the central bank wanted to create one as well, I think it certainly would be a reasonable contender.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the criticism that comes along with CBDCs is that the whole goal of crypto is for it to be decentralized, and here you have a very central, literally by definition, central bank launching a digital currency. It kind of conflicts with what crypto was intended to be.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there are privacy concerns with that. I mean, depends how it's architected, but a CBDC could actually turn into a dragnet surveillance tool. And that's what we've seen happen in China, for instance, where the government there recognizes the potential and the power of this technology, but they want to harness it for their own purposes, which may not align with every country's values.